So now we've seen the impact of how the age of discovery on Africa. We didn't particularly talk about any one country because all of the countries, from the Dutch to the French and the English, really profited significantly off the triangular trade, the African transatlantic slave trade, and those elements. But now we're going to transition here to the colonization of Asia. This is where we're going to pick up a little bit of that rivalry. Um, I like what Dr. Spivogel starts here. He compared Vietnam to the Spice Islands. I do hope when you were power mapping, you saw that Vietnam was able to some degree resist colonization because of its geographic and economic features. Geographically, Vietnam remained relatively a centralized kingdom, both geographically, of course, and politically. And with this sense of unity, they were able to resist in there. But again, I do think that one of the more important elements is there were no valuable commodities in which Vietnam held. You might say, "Well, I heard there's jade there. There's other things. The chief product commodity they produce is rice." But during the 18th century, there was really little demand for anything from Vietnam. So it doesn't become financially feasible for the European states to do here. Yes, they attempted it, but I think in the end they're going to be kind of repelled because of that. Where the Spice Islands is quite the opposite, right? The Spice Islands, when we think about the Spice Island, these areas here, a very dramatic, different element. We see that the Spice Islands, geographically, the Spice Islands were decentralized. They're scattered. They're very difficult to centralize and unite, and because of that, it really creates a power vacuum. The Europeans who have, especially the Dutch, who have advanced weaponry with their guns, steel, and other elements, they're able to come in and really take over what the Portuguese had not taken over. And economically, clearly, the spice plantations were the real significance of all this time period. So I do want to make sure you have in your notes here that yes, despite being geographically similar location, both in Southeast Asia, really Vietnam's gonna have a limited impact, colonial impact, because of their centralization and lack of economic value. And the Spice Islands are going to be completely transformed, especially by the Dutch. And here we're going to see the Dutch East India Company. This is the joint stock company that really generated the significant wealth that really is going to fund not just the Netherlands economy, but it's really going to give birth to what we know as capitalism. And I hope you've already power mapped that part of that. The Dutch East India Company focused primarily on spice trade. And we already know that with Da Gama's trip back with Indian spices, and he had thousands of percent interest, the Dutch East India Company is going to really make significant money here. With spices being so scarce in Europe, they're going to be worth their weight in gold, at least for a time period. So a pound of cinnamon literally was going to be worth a pound of gold. I know that's really outside of our understanding because obviously spices are no longer as scarce, but that's going to be really the focus here because of this wealth. After withdrawing from India, the Dutch really are going to colonize the Spice Islands. They're going to shift the focus from Malacca, and they're going to establish Batavia. This is going to be their economic, political, and military capital of their colonies, and they're going to oversee really from here and dominance. Again, I'm not quite sure why Malacca was not as important to them, but they are going to transform in our next slide, or two slides from now. We'll see that. In addition to other ventures, I want to point out that Dutch East India Company peaked with a value worth of nearly $8 trillion in today's currency. So this is a significant company. The colonization of the Spice Islands really proved to be the cornerstone of their empire. And again, I just hope that you kind of have that general understanding. Here, I love this painting in your textbook. It shows you the impact. This is the economic and cultural impact footprint, if you will, that the Dutch bring. Here, this is clearly just like Amsterdam with the canals here. They're going to build those canals When we ask that question, what kind of infrastructure do you see? We see canals, we see the city, we see plantations, we just see really, a significant European-like organized colony. And one of the things we see is today Batavia is the modern day Jakarta, and Jakarta is still one of the economic capitals of Southeast Asia. And one of the ways they're going to benefit is they're going to be the economic footprint that the Dutch leave. I'm not a big fan of what some of the historians want us to do here. They want us to pause here and ensure that we see that there is some elements of positive impact. I'm not a historian to say that colonialism is ever positive, but one thing I can see is this infrastructure is going to become a permanent part of the Spice Islands. So even when the Dutch leave, they're going to be able to benefit from this type of infrastructure. But again, let's not pretend that the Dutch meant for that to happen. And that's where we're going to pause here. That's just the Southeast Asia.